Today's number is 75, as in 75%. That's the share of new code written inside Google that's now generated by AI. Not assisted, not suggested, generated. Google's cloud chief Thomas Kurian said it on stage yesterday at Google Cloud Next. 6 months ago, that number was closer to 50%, 25 points in just 2 quarters. Here's the question that number forces. If 3 out of every 4 new lines at the biggest cloud company on the planet are written by a model, is the job of a software engineer still the same job it was this time last year? Hang on to that question. It's going to be the backbone of today's lead story. Well, it's Thursday. Happy Thursday. We're almost there to the weekend. Yesterday, inside a window of about 6 hours, 3 of the biggest AI companies on the planet each made the same move and called it a different name. Google put AI agents inside Workspace and announced the next Siri runs on Gemini. OpenAI shipped shared workspace agents that keep working when you close your laptop. And Reuters reported Meta is recording keystrokes, clicks, and screens on its own employees' computers to train the next generation of those agents. One cycle, one thesis. This is the week AI agents went from the slide deck and started showing up inside the tools you use for work. I'm Don Michalik, and this is your Morning Intelligence for Thursday, April 23rd, 2026. Here's what we've got for today's lead. Apple Siri is going to run on Google's Gemini, part of a bigger redraw of where AI lives inside your work tools in your phone. In the rundown, OpenAI shipped workspace agents the same day Google did. Meta is recording its own employees to train its agent models. And the Attorney General of Florida opened what he's calling the first criminal probe of a major AI company by a U.S. state. In today's Deep Cut, MIT Tech Review's first ever list of 10 things that matter in AI right now. The 3 we'll touch on affect your work life. And we close with the model Anthropic said was too dangerous to release, accessed on day 1 by a Discord group that guessed the URL. I can't make that up. Here's the thread to hold all these stories together. Everywhere you look, yesterday, today, maybe sometime even into the future, somebody was or is or can be putting an agent inside the next tool you use at work, which leaves one question worth asking on Thursday morning. Who's actually steering this industry? Let's go ahead and get into it. All right, let's go ahead and start with our lead today. Google Cloud Next 26 opened yesterday in Las Vegas. Thomas Kurian gave the keynote and did 4 things in about 90 minutes that probably each deserve their own episode. First up, the next generation of Apple Foundation models, the models that will power the refresh Siri Apple's been promising, will be based entirely on Gemini. If you carry an iPhone, the Siri you've been waiting for later this year, well, it's going to be running on Google's models. 2, Gemini Enterprise. Google's version of ChatGPT Enterprise got a little bit of a repositioning. It's no longer a chatbot. Kurian called it mission control platform for agents across your workspace. You, the administrator, everyone decides what the agents are allowed to do across which models, across which clouds. His phrase, quote, choose your own destiny. Translation, a lot of what currently lives inside one IT director's head is about to become a dashboard. 3, Walmart is rolling out Google Pixel Folds to in-store workers with Gemini on device, answering customer questions on the floor, surfacing supply chain issues. First clear signal that AI on a company's phone is a frontline frontier worker tool, not a back office one. 4th, the number of the day. Kurian disclosed on stage that 75% of new code at Google is AI generated, up from about half of that just 6 months ago. Not a PR boast. Google is telling 3,000 enterprise customers in the room and every Fortune 500 CIO on live stream, you should be doing this too. Also in the keynote, an 8th generation TPU chip, Google's answer to NVIDIA, a $750 million partner fund for agentic builds, a Gemini 3.2 preview with context windows above 1 million tokens, and A Merck deal reportedly in the ballpark of $1 billion to deploy Gemini Enterprise across their R&D, manufacturing, and commercial units. So why does this matter and why is it the lead? Well, three of those put AI directly into the tools this audience probably cares about every single day. Let's start with the Apple Siri. This is the one that will sit with us for a while. Apple, the company that spent 2 years telling you it was going to build the best on device AI in the world, well, they're outsourcing its most important consumer product to Google. When two companies that built a decade of branding on being competitors quietly join forces, that's a moment to check whether the territory moved while you weren't looking. Because to be frank, it just did. Gemini Enterprise lands on Monday morning staff meeting. Here's the question to walk in holding. Who on your team is actually going to define what an agent is allowed to do at your company? That job didn't exist yesterday. Well, someone's going to have that job here sooner rather than later. If you want to be somebody thoughtful, speak up before the dashboard ships. And the 75% number is the answer to the question I get asked more than any other. Is AI actually writing real code at real companies yet? Well, here's just another tick for yes. At the company whose cloud platform yours probably runs on as well. 3 out of every 4 new lines come from a model. The bottom line here, well, if you have an iPhone, the Siri you've been waiting on will run on Gemini. If your company lives on Workspace, Gemini Enterprise becomes the dashboard where somebody proves what agents can do and not do. Both show up on your screen before the year end. One last thing before we move on into the rundown. Every story in today's lead is really kind of the same story if you think about it. A big platform that used to give you a tool is now giving you a coworker. Coworkers need bosses. So who's supposed to be the boss of the agent that's about to show up in your Gmail? Hold the question. It'll come back. All right, let's go ahead and get into today's rundown. And rundown story number one, OpenAI just shipped workspace agents. On the same day Google was on stage in Vegas, OpenAI quietly shipped its own showstopper, workspace agents in ChatGPT. Shared AI agent teams build once and you use across the entire org. Powered by Codex, they run in the cloud, keep working when you close your laptop, write, run code, connect to your apps, remember context, run on schedule, and yes, even works in Slack. Available right now in research preview for ChatGPT Business, Enterprise, EDU, and teachers. Free until May 6th. Credit based pricing after that. The context here, well, this is the fifth OpenAI product release in just 4 business days. Monday, Chronicle inside of Codex shipped. Tuesday, ChatGPT Images 2.0 shipped. Today, Workspace Agents. The word it's all coordinated around is agent. It's a very practical move if you think about it. If you're on ChatGPT Business or Enterprise, open it this week and build one workspace agent for the single most repetitive thing on your plate. I don't know, I do this thing every Monday task. Hand it to an agent instead. It's free until May 6th. An editorial line here, if I may, Google and OpenAI put agents in front of the same audience inside of 48 hours of one another. Neither use the word agent rather casually. They use it very explicitly. This is a year and not just a day, week, or month where this kind of shift is going to be the norm. And here's the bridge into our next story. Everyone's racing to build the agent. Nobody on stage this week answered the other question. Who's asking how we train it? That gets us into rundown number two. Reuters broke on Monday that Meta is installing tracking software on its US based employees' computers. It captures mouse movements, clicks, keystrokes, occasional screen snapshots. All that data feeds into training Meta's AI agent models. And the internal name for it is Model Capability Initiative. Per the internal memos Reuters reviewed, the purpose is to teach agent models the low level things that current agents still fumble on, choosing from a drop down menu, using a keyboard shortcut, the small motor skills of working on a computer. Meta says, and the caveat matters here, the data won't be used for performance assessments and its safeguards exist for sensitive content. I'm going to leave that exactly where Meta left it because who knows if that's ever going to change. Why is it in the rundown and not buried outside of today's episode? Well, again, 2 days ago in episode, I think it was 28, we aired a Stanford finding. Knowledge workers are most productive with AI on the couch and not necessarily at the desk. The personal laptop, the home office, 76 to 176% more efficient on digital chores on personal time than at desk time. Meta's answer, now on the record, is the mirror image. Stanford said you're more productive at home using AI tools. Meta just said they're going to close that gap by watching you at work. A practical nudge here before you paste anything sensitive into a work AI tool this week, remember the model that autofills the drop down menu for you next year is being trained on somebody's screen this year. Meta just put a name on it. Your own company may be doing a quieter version and not calling it out yet. And the thread into the next story is rather explicit here. Google and OpenAI are selling you the agent. Meta is telling you how they're going to train it, which leaves maybe one unresolved piece here. Where do you, person being watched, sit inside this entire world? That walks us into today's rundown number 3. Florida Attorney General James Euthymire confirmed on Tuesday that his office has opened a criminal investigation into OpenAI. He's framing it publicly as the first criminal probe of a major AI company by a U.S. state attorney general. The factual frame here matters. Earlier this month, an attack took place on the university campus in Florida. Investigators later found that the person responsible used ChatGPT during the planning phase. Those chat logs are now part of the case. Youthmire's office is examining what the model was asked, what it returned, and whether OpenAI's safety systems function the way the company has described them. I'm staying on the legal and the procedural side of this for obvious reasons. I'm not going to narrate what happened on that campus on that fateful day. That's not what this segment is about. But on the record here, Youthmeyer said his prosecutors told him that if a person had been given the answers the chatbot had given, that person would be facing criminal charges for murder. That is the attorney general's framing here, and it's what's going to carry the story into this week, into the weekend, into next week, and beyond when this case heats up. OpenAI has responded. The company said ChatGPT provided factual responses to questions using information that could be found broadly across the public internet. Said ChatGPT is not responsible for the crime. OpenAI said it is also cooperating with law enforcement and has shared account information. Why in the rundown and not in today's lead? Well, there's really no charge here. There's no subpoena. There's no filing deadline yet. The probe is the news for now. If any of those 3 things land overnight, over into the weekend, obviously that's going to shape up another episode here in the near future. So why should this matter to people? Why should this matter to you? Well, the question Youthmeyer is asking, can an AI company be criminally liable for what its chatbot helps someone plan, is about to land on every legal, compliance, trust and safety, and HR desk in the country. Every company rolling out ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini across its workforce is about to get asked 2 new internal questions. What do our logs actually show? And how long do we actually keep them? Practical nudge here based just on this story alone. If you work anywhere near policy, risk, compliance, or trust and safety at your company, this is the memo you want to read today. And here's the question that lands in the whole rundown. All 3 of these stories you just heard are really the same story if you think about it. Somebody somewhere is being asked who's responsible for what the agent did. The race is on to build, but the rules are lagging. All right, let's go ahead and get into our deep cut today. MIT Technology Review published its first ever list of 10 things that matter in AI right now, a new annual franchise. It dropped on Monday at the MTech AI conference up at MIT. The full 10 briefly here. 1, world models for robotics. 2, humanoid robots learning from massive video datasets. 3, and I actually love this one, LLMs, the thing everyone's been calling plateaued for the last 6 months. Well, those still have some juice. 4, AI radically lowering the cost of running scams. 5, generative AI earning a seat in the war room. 6, collaborative agent teams inside enterprise workflows. 7, AI co-scientists on Nobel level problems. 8, Chinese labs giving away frontier models for global credibility. 9, weaponized deepfakes at scale. 10, a real cultural and political backlash against AI is now forming. Promised yesterday that I'd walk through the entire list. Now I'm going to walk through 3, the 3 that touch your working life the fastest. Why it's worth your time? Well, let's start with the first one, collaborative agent teams inside enterprise workflows. The same thread that ran through today's lead and rundown is in this one. Google shipped agents in Workspace, OpenAI shipped Workspace agents, MIT, entirely separately, wrote the sentence that says that this is the shift. It's happening in the workplace. Everyone waiting for a referee on whether the agent thing is real, well, MIT just refereed. They're not there to sell the model, and that's why it matters. Second up, AI lowering the cost of running scams. We covered this from a different angle in a past episode. The FBI's Internet Crime Report from 2025, $893 million in AI specific fraud. MIT adds the why here. Losses aren't accelerating because criminals got smarter, they're accelerating because the production cost of a convincing scam has absolutely cratered. So, if you're the person who signs off on wire transfers or approves invoices or onboards vendors, is your phishing prevention training still a quarterly checkbox or is it weekly yet? Because the attacker's tooling is getting more sophisticated with each passing week. And third and finally, less on this audience radar, but I think it should be. Chinese AI labs giving away frontier models for free to gain global credibility. Some tools your company rolls out this year, possibly without telling you, may sit on top of models that came out of Chinese labs. DeepSeek, Gwen, Moonshot. I'm not going to turn this into a geopolitical take, but what I will say is this. If you work in procurement, legal, security, whose model is under the hood of the tool we just bought is now a real question. And the answer isn't always the one your vendor will voluntarily tell you. The takeaway here, well, MIT doesn't sell models. Pick a few items from MIT's list and go deeper into them yourself. And you'll walk into any meeting next week ahead of 90% of your coworkers. That's the whole point of the list. And honestly, probably even this show. So, which ones are you going to dive into? All right, some fun stuff before we sign off today. And we're going to close the show with this one. Earlier this month, if you remember, Anthropic released its most capable model yet called Claude Mythos Preview on an extremely gated basis. It was pitched as a cybersecurity tool, released to a short list of trusted partners only. And on day one, a Discord group that hunts for unreleased AI models cracked in and got access. How'd they get in? Well, nothing too sophisticated. They just simply guessed the URL. They knew Anthropic's naming convention from internal model endpoints. They had leaked metadata from a recent breach at Mercor, an AI data labeling company Anthropic works with, plus credentials from a third party contractor. Put those things together, guess the address, and boom, they're logged in. Anthropic, to its credit, confirmed the access. They told Euronews Next it's investigating unauthorized access through a third party vendor environment. They say there's no evidence internal systems were compromised. The group's actual use, per the reporting, was mostly benign websites, small experiments. Nobody, as far as we know, used the most capable cyber defense model in the world to do cyber offense with it. Yet. Takeaway in just one sentence here, well, the company that built its brand on being the safety first AI lab had its most capable model accessed on day one by a Discord group that just simply guessed the URL. That's the gap between what AI companies can build and what they can actually lock down safely. And that's the thread this whole episode has been trying to pull on. Apple picked Google's model. Google and OpenAI shipped the same thing on the same day. Meta is training on its employees. A state attorney general is asking who's criminally liable here. A Discord group guessed the URL. Somewhere in all of that is the question worth walking away with. What will happen when the people who are designing this stuff are moving faster than the people responsible for locking it down and making sure it's safe? Sit with that one as we walk into tomorrow. All right, tomorrow we do have a few teasers here. We have our Friday 3. We're going to synthesize a lot of the great stories that we talked about this week. It's going to be great. One thing we'll be following the AI washing signal inside the Duke and Richmond Fed survey that found nearly 6 in 10 CFOs admit their companies are overstating AI use. Second up, what we'll also be watching is what actually shipped this week versus what got re-announced. Something else we'll be watching is where the Anthropic, Google, OpenAI enterprise race stands at the week's end and at the month's end. Looking a little bit further out, we covered this yesterday. Obviously, Monday, we have jury selection for the Musk versus OpenAI trial in Oakland federal court. The trial is not on tonight's lineup by design because we talked about it yesterday, but we'll make sure to maybe tease a little bit something tomorrow and get us ready for Monday. And that's your morning intelligence for Thursday, April 23rd, 2026. If you liked what you heard, hit subscribe from wherever you're listening. Share this episode with that one friend who keeps asking you, hey, what's going on in the world of AI? You know who they are. I'm Don Michalik. Thank you so much for listening and have a great rest of your Thursday.